Hey, everyone, and welcome back. It's officially, supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, but, well, we're diving into something that might make you think a little differently about that.
Yeah.
We're talking money wounds during the holidays, and get ready for some pretty shocking stats, I think, and hopefully some aha moments, too.
It is interesting, we always think about the holidays as being joyful and generous, but they can really dig up a lot of financial anxieties for
Oh,
people.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And the data is, well, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Did you know that 76% of Americans, like who celebrate, winter holidays,
Uh,
experience these money wounds?
that's a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like this hidden epidemic. What are we even talking about here?
Yeah.
When we say money wounds, what does that even mean?
Yeah. So money wounds are basically like emotional scars that come from money challenges
Yeah.
or even traumas. And these wounds can show up in different ways. Maybe you feel inadequate because of your financial situation. Or maybe you develop a shopping addiction, to kind of cope.
So it's not just about how much money you have. It's really about all the feelings
Yes.
that come with it. Have you ever felt that not in your stomach?
Yeah.
When you're looking at your holiday shopping lists getting longer?
Yeah.
Or you're kind of comparing what you're getting for people to what everyone else is getting. I
Yeah.
think we've all had that.
Absolutely. That's a classic, money wound flare up right there.
Oh, okay.
And it's not surprising that compulsive overspending is a huge issue. 25% of people are really struggling with that during the holidays.
It's like everything's telling you to spend, spend, spend.
Yes.
But what's really interesting to me is that a lot of people, over a quarter of people, don't even realize
Yeah.
that they have these bad money mindsets, and bad habits until the holidays come around.
It's true. It's like they sneak up on you.
Yeah. They just kind of pop up.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, no.
This is where things get interesting, The research actually points to three main sources of pressure to spend money during the holidays. So we have family, we have friends, and then, get ready for this, social media and pop culture.
Oh, my gosh. Social media is such a culprit.
Right.
I can already picture, in my head, all of those, perfectly curated holiday tablescapes and all the crazy, extravagant gifts
Uh-huh.
all over my feed. That's pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, out of those three, which one do you think has the biggest influence on people?
Well, family is actually in the lead.
Okay.
71%, followed by friends at 28%, and then social media and pop culture at 19%.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always just external pressures that contribute to money wounds.
Yeah.
A lot of it is rooted in deeper, more personal things that people have experienced.
Well, what kind of experiences?
So the research talks about some common money traumas, things that really fuel anxieties, things making big financial mistakes in the past, maybe struggling financially, when you were younger, or even dealing with chronic debt.
Right.
And these things can really create a ripple effect
Oh, wow.
that shapes your habits
Yeah.
and your mindset about money for years and years.
Yeah, I bet it leaves a mark,
Yeah.
how you view money and, whether you think you can manage it.
Exactly.
And the data shows that this isn't just a small thing.
Right.
These money wounds can actually make people feel like they're not fulfilled in their lives or successful.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people. 68% of people with money wounds actually report feeling held back
Wow.
in some way. And I think that speaks to a bigger issue, how connected our financial well-being is to our overall sense of, self-worth,
Yeah.
our happiness.
It's true. I feel like those money anxieties can creep into every part of your life.
They do.
Your job, your relationships, even just enjoying what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But we don't want to make this all doom and gloom.
No.
So let's talk about what people do to actually cope with these stressors.
Yeah. Okay, so some of these coping mechanisms might surprise you. The research shows that 37% of people will just avoid buying gifts completely as a way to deal with the stress.
Yeah.
And then 33% will decline social invitations so they don't have to go to those awkward or expensive situations.
I mean, that's understandable.
Right.
Who wants to feel like they have to spend money they don't have
Exactly.
or be judged for their gifts?
Exactly.
This one I think is really interesting. 29% of people won't even look at their bank account balances.
It's classic, right? Out of sight, out of mind.
But avoiding it doesn't make it go away, right?
No, it doesn't.
They
And
do.
usually it makes things worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like pretending the problem isn't there.
Right.
I'm curious, what happens because of all of this avoidance?
Mm-hmm.
Does it actually make people feel less stressed? Or does it just, like, create different problems?
So, I mean, it can go both ways.
Okay.
On the one hand, those avoidance tactics can like help for a little bit, but on the other hand, they can lead to like, feeling isolated and lonely,
Mm.
especially, during the holidays.
Yeah, because it's supposed to be all about connection.
Exactly. And it's like you're trading one set of anxieties for another. And a lot of people, like 42%, end up distancing themselves
Wow, that's a lot.
from others
Yeah.
during the holidays to avoid, feeling less than or pressured to spend money they don't have.
Wow, that's almost half the people.
Yeah.
I bet that just makes those feelings of shame and guilt and loneliness worse,
Yes.
right?
It's a vicious cycle. Financial stress leads to avoidance, then avoidance leads to isolation, and then the isolation makes that shame and anxiety worse. It's hard to escape, but it's not all bad. There is some good news. 61% of people are actively trying to, believe that money and spending doesn't equal happiness.
That's awesome. Like, realizing that your worth isn't based on, your bank account.
Yes.
I feel like that's huge to, like, get out of that negative mindset.
Yeah, it's a big shift.
Uh,
And then it can open the door to actually finding real joy and fulfillment in things that matter, experiences, relationships, growing as a person rather than the stuff.
Like things that are truly priceless.
Yes.
What about people who are really struggling and, maybe need some extra support? What's the research say about that?
This is a really good stat. 27% of people have actually gotten professional help
That's good.
to deal with their stress about money. So they're talking to therapists about the emotional stuff.
Okay.
And they're talking to financial advisors to learn how to budget and manage their money better.
It sounds like they're getting help with both, like the feelings part and the practical part.
Yes, exactly. And it's great because it shows that people are starting to see how important it is to be mentally and financially well,
Yeah,
and that they're willing to do something about it.
I love that.
But here's the thing. Healing from money wounds isn't a quick fix,
Okay.
It takes time
Yeah.
and dedication.
So how long are we talking about? Is there like a timeline for, recovery?
The research suggests that it takes an average of 6 years for a money wound to actually heal.
Wow.
And unfortunately, 37% of people believe that money trauma never fully heals.
Wow.
So you have to be really patient and easy on yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about, making progress little by little.
I guess it makes sense. Like you're untangling all these beliefs and behaviors
Yes.
that have been there for years.
Exactly. It's a process of unlearning those harmful patterns
Right.
and replacing them with healthier ones, both with your habits and your mindset. And we'll get into more of that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so before we move on, let's do a super quick recap of what we've covered. So money wounds are really common, especially during the holidays. They can be triggered by things like, expectations from family or even what we see on social media. But usually they're coming from deeper, more personal stuff like past money mistakes or chronic debt.
Yes.
And we've also talked about like how these money wounds can show up in different ways. It could be like overspending or avoiding things and even social isolation.
Yeah.
But I mean, the good news is,
There is good news.
even though these wounds can be deep and they take a while to heal, there's still hope.
Absolutely.
People are becoming more aware of these challenges.
Yes.
They're trying to change their mindset, and they're even getting professional help
Yeah.
to deal with both, the emotions and the practical side of things.
Right. So even though the holidays can be really tough
Yeah.
for people who struggle with this stuff, there are ways to cope, there are resources, and there's definitely a path towards, healing and growth.
So everyone, stay tuned because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to talk about some practical tips
Yeah.
and strategies for how to navigate those tricky money conversations
Right.
with your loved ones during the holidays.
Yeah.
Don't miss it. All right. So we've talked about how real money wounds are
Yeah.
and that they're way more common than you might think, especially around the holidays, right?
Definitely.
But okay, knowing about the problem is one thing. Actually changing what we do and our whole mindset, that's going to be tough.
It is. It's kind of like anything else. Awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
We need to be able to recognize those moments when we're really vulnerable to, those money wound impulses, those things that make us grab our credit card or compare ourselves to everyone else.
So it's like having a little alarm bell in your head that goes off when you're about to do something that might not be the best for your finances or what you really value.
Exactly. Maybe you notice your heart starts beating faster when you're looking at online sales. Or you get a little anxious when your friend suggests doing something expensive for the holidays.
Right, right.
Once you, like, figure out what those triggers are, you can start to come up with strategies to deal with them.
Okay, let's talk strategy.
Yeah.
What are some, like, real things people can do to handle those situations?
Okay, well, starting with a realistic budget is super important.
Okay.
And I mean, like, really realistic. One that includes all those little holiday expenses that we forget about.
Oh, yeah.
Travel, decorations, those, like, just because gifts, you know?
Yeah, it's so easy to just get caught up in everything. And
Right.
then January comes and your credit card bill is like, surprise.
Exactly. Having a budget helps you make, intentional choices about where your money's going, and it stops you from making those impulse buys. That can totally mess up your financial goals. Another good tactic is making a list and sticking to it,
Okay.
whether it's for gifts or groceries or whatever you're doing for the holidays.
Makes sense.
It helps you, like, stay focused so
Yeah.
you don't get sidetracked by all the shiny things.
It's like you've got those blinders on, like at the racetrack. Eyes on the prize, or in this case, eyes on the budget. But let's be honest. Sometimes the hardest part is the pressure from, like, our family and friends, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you do when they expect you to get them expensive gifts?
Yeah.
Or they want to do all these extravagant holiday things that you just can't afford?
Those situations are so tough. But you have to remember that you have the right to set boundaries,
Oh, yeah.
even with the people you're closest to. You
Uh,
don't have to overspend or go into debt to make other people happy.
I feel like we need a class in, like, how to be assertive,
Yes.
especially during the holidays.
Absolutely. Open communication is key. Have, like, a real conversation with
Yeah.
your loved ones about your finances
Yeah.
and how you want to approach the holidays differently.
So instead of just, like, going along with things because we feel obligated or guilty,
Right.
we need to be upfront about, like, what we can do and what we need.
Exactly. And, it might be a little awkward at first, but trust me, having those conversations can save you a lot of resentment and stress later on. You might even be surprised how understanding your family and friends can be.
Okay, so let's say you've talked to them, set some boundaries,
Yeah.
but you still feel pressure to do gift exchanges or go to events that are, like, way too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other ways to, like, keep those relationships without, going broke?
This is where you got to get creative.
Okay, I like that.
Maybe suggest doing a secret Santa where everyone agrees on a spending limit, or like a potluck dinner instead of going to a fancy restaurant.
Ooh, I like that.
You could even do a family volunteering day,
Yeah.
like a homemade ornament exchange.
I love that. It's like shifting the focus to experiences or doing something for others, which is so much more meaningful
Exactly.
than just, like, a bunch of stuff.
And it ties back to what we were talking about before, about how real happiness isn't about the presents.
Uh-huh.
It's about connection and those moments that you remember forever.
Okay, so we've talked about budgeting, setting boundaries, and finding different ways to celebrate. What about those, like, deeper money wounds
Right.
that
Yeah.
might be causing some of this anxiety in the first place?
That's where professional help can be really helpful.
Hmm?
Therapy can help you, figure out those emotional roots of your money anxieties, and a financial advisor can give you practical advice on budgeting, debt management, all of that.
So it's like having a team to guide you through both the emotional and the practical stuff.
Exactly. Financial health isn't just about the numbers. It's about feeling secure, confident, and like you're in control of your money. And when you feel that way, it can make a huge difference in your whole life.
It's like finally being the captain of your own ship, you know?
Yes.
You're steering towards the financial future you want instead of just getting tossed around by debt or anxiety. But, I mean, let's be realistic. This journey to financial, like, wellness isn't always easy, right?
No, it's not.
There are going to be bumps in the road, doubts, maybe even some, storms along the way.
Definitely. And that's why it's so important to be kind to yourself.
Oh, yeah.
We have to remember that we're all work in progress.
Right.
And that everyone makes mistakes.
So instead of beating ourselves up for past mistakes or comparing ourselves to other people,
Yeah.
we should be celebrating the progress we're making.
Exactly. It's about progress, not perfection. And you're not alone in this. So many people struggle with this stuff, especially around the holidays. There's help out there, communities of support, and lots of hope.
I love that. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. How do we handle those awkward, maybe even like conflicty conversations about money with the people we love?
That's a really good question, and it's something we're going to dive into in the next part of our deep dive. I'll talk about some tips and ways to communicate so you can have those important conversations with grace and empathy.
Stay tuned, everyone. This is where it gets really interesting. All right, so we're back and ready to deal with what might be the hardest part of this whole thing, actually talking about money wounds with, our family and friends,
Yeah.
especially during the holidays when it's supposed to be all about being, happy and together.
It's true. These conversations can be tricky, like a lot of emotions involved.
Yeah.
But remember, when you communicate openly,
Uh-huh.
it helps to break down that shame
Yeah.
and isolation that people often feel about money stress.
Sounds like letting some fresh air in,
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we actually have these conversations? What are some tips to make it feel safe
Yeah.
and productive and caring instead of turning the holidays into a therapy session?
Well, first of all, timing is everything. Don't try to have these conversations when everyone's already stressed out
Oh, yeah.
and running around.
Mhm.
Find a quiet time, maybe after dinner or on a walk, when you can really talk
Mhm.
bluntly and openly without distractions.
So it's like setting the mood for a real conversation,
Yes,
not a budget battle in the middle of making cookies, right?
exactly. And when you do talk, start by focusing on your own feelings.
Okay.
Use I statements like, I've been feeling really anxious about spending during the holidays, or I'm trying to be more careful with my money and I would really appreciate your support.
So it's about being honest about how you feel
Yes,
instead of blaming other people or making them feel bad about how they spend?
exactly. And be ready to listen to their perspective too.
Okay, yeah.
Remember that everybody has their own relationship with money, their
Yeah.
own values and beliefs, and they might even have their own money wounds.
It's a two-way street. We need to listen to each other, even if we don't agree on everything.
Exactly. And try to find some common ground.
Uh,
Maybe you both agree that the holidays have become too commercialized, or that spending time together is
Nice.
more important than buying a bunch of presents.
Yeah. Focusing on those shared values can really help, I think.
Hmm.
But what about when you just disagree about something? Like expectations for gifts
Mm-hmm.
or how much to spend? Those could feel like, deal breakers,
Hmm.
especially during the holidays.
Those are tough conversations for
Yeah.
sure, but it's important to stand your ground and set boundaries.
Okay.
But do it with kindness and respect. You don't have to give in to pressure or spend more than you can afford just to avoid conflict.
Mm.
And it's okay to disagree as long as you're respectful.
So it's about finding that balance between being assertive,
Yes.
but also being compassionate.
Right.
You could say what you need and want without being a Scrooge
Right.
or
Mhm.
making anyone feel bad about their generosity.
Exactly. You can say something like, I really appreciate that you want to get me something, but I'm trying to be more mindful of my spending this year. Would you be open to setting a spending limit or doing a secret Santa?
That's a good one. It's direct, but it's also respectful.
Yeah.
And it offers a solution that works for everyone. But even with good communication, these talks can get a little, tense. What are some things we should avoid saying that might make things worse?
Okay. Avoid phrases that sound judgmental or accusatory.
Okay.
Like, you always spend too much, or you're out of control with your gift giving.
Right, yeah.
Those kinds of statements will probably just make people defensive, and then the conversation is over.
So it's more about how their actions make you feel
Right.
instead of labeling them as the problem.
Exactly. Focus on the impact it has on you and your relationship. For example, when I feel pressured to spend more than I can afford, it makes me really anxious, and I worry that it's putting a strain on our relationship.
I like that. It's honest, it's vulnerable, and it helps them understand.
Uh-huh.
But even with the best intentions, these conversations aren't always going to be easy.
It's true.
There might be pushback, hurt feelings, disagreements that, stick around.
Yeah, but even if the conversation doesn't go perfectly, you're still making things better for the future. You're opening up communication, setting boundaries, and taking care of your financial well-being.
And you're showing your loved ones how to communicate in a healthy way,
Yes.
which is a gift in itself.
Exactly. And sometimes you just have to compromise.
Right.
Maybe you agree on a spending limit for gifts or find different ways to celebrate that are more budget-friendly.
I love that, getting creative and thinking outside the box.
Uh-huh.
Who knows, maybe you'll even start some new traditions that are more meaningful, and don't cost a fortune.
It's possible these conversations might not always be easy,
Yeah.
but they're worth having. When you open up communication, you create space for understanding, empathy, and stronger relationships.
It's like decluttering to make room for what really matters.
Exactly.
We're breaking down those money taboos
Yes.
and creating a more honest, supportive, and financially healthy place for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's a big step towards healing those money wounds and building a better relationship with money, both for ourselves and the people we care about.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Money wounds are incredibly common and they can really affect our well-being, especially during a time when there's so much pressure to spend.
Yeah.
But there is hope.
Okay.
When we acknowledge these challenges, seek support, and talk openly with our loved ones, we can start to heal and create a more fulfilling life, both financially and emotionally.
So well said. And remember, even small steps
Yeah.
towards financial well-being can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Maybe it's setting a budget, talking honestly with someone you love, or getting advice from a professional. Every step matters.
Absolutely. As we head into this holiday season, be kind to yourself, prioritize your well-being, both mental and financial, and remember, real joy comes from connection, not stuff.
That's so true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope this has given you some insights and that you feel ready to approach the holidays with a little more peace of mind when it comes to your finances. You've got this.